Welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're here because today we're tackling something that literally everyone struggles with, but honestly, very few people actually know how to fix. We're talking about focus. But listen, we are not going to talk about slapping more productivity hacks onto your day. Actually, the core premise we're exploring today is completely different. True focus? It's really about removing bad habits, not forcing new ones onto a brain that's already completely exhausted.
Okay, let's dive into this. You know what's absolutely crazy? Some people can just sit down at their desk and bam, they lock in instantly. No checking their phone, no constantly flipping through tabs, they just work. And in 4 hours, they somehow manage to get more done than most of us do in an entire week. Then, well, there are the rest of us. Or at least how I used to be. You sit at the exact same desk, staring at the exact same computer, but you struggle for 10 hours straight. You open a document, then you check your email. Then you suddenly decide you need water. And before you know it, you're staring at the screen feeling like your brain is just stuffed full of fog. You feel perpetually busy but never ever actually productive.
Look, if that second scenario sounds like you, let me just validate your frustration right now. It is utterly exhausting. You probably start your day with these massive goals, feeling incredibly motivated for exactly 5 minutes. But then your phone buzzes, or you get this sudden, unexplainable urge to check the news, and suddenly it's noon. You end up feeling lazy, or even kind of stupid, like your brain is just fundamentally broken. So what do? We try these superficial fixes, right? We buy those ridiculously expensive planners. We download extreme focus apps that literally lock us out of our own computers. We even try waking up at 4 a.m., totally convinced that sleep deprivation is somehow the magical cure, but nothing works. And the reason these common hacks fail is because they don't address the real root cause. We are accidentally training our brains for distraction.
Which brings us to point number 1. Stop negotiating with distractions. This is the very first major behavioral shift we need to make.
See, lack of focus doesn't just happen randomly. It happens because of how we respond to distractions in the moment. Once you stop training your brain for distraction, it actually defaults back to focus almost immediately. Here's what most of us do when we feel that itch to check our phone or open a new tab. We try to fight it. We use pure brute force willpower. We sit there gritting our teeth, telling ourselves, do not look, do not look. But eventually, we run out of mental energy and we look anyway. The huge problem here is that when you fight a distraction, you're actually still giving it your attention. You're engaging with it, and your brain absolutely loves that engagement. You're basically playing this dopamine game that only makes the urge so much stronger.
So instead of fighting, you need a completely different approach. When you feel the urge to break your focus, just notice it, acknowledge it, and say this one simple sentence to yourself: I am not negotiating with that. And then, you simply go back to work. No guilt, no anger, just a flat refusal to negotiate. It's like you have to treat that distraction like a fly buzzing around your head or a car driving past your window. You hear it, sure, but you don't run outside to chase the car. You just refuse to engage.
And this brilliantly illustrates why this technique is so scary powerful. Most people mistakenly think focus is all about force, but honestly, it's actually about non-resistance. Think about a time you hit a really hard part on a project, and your brain literally screamed, "Check Instagram." The old habit is to fight that urge for 5 agonizing minutes before finally caving in. The new habit is simply saying, I am not negotiating, and keeping your hands glued to the keyboard. By dropping the resistance, you aren't getting emotional about the distraction anymore, and you will be totally amazed to see that the urge simply vanishes in about 10 seconds. It is infinitely more powerful than sheer willpower.
Let's move on to number 2, stop being reactively available. This crucial behavior is all about how we manage our boundaries.
Constant availability is a massive silent drain on your mental energy. Think about a waiter in a wildly busy restaurant. They're running around, constantly reacting to everyone else's immediate needs. Water over here, food over there, check please. They're working incredibly hard, but they aren't actually building anything, right? They're purely reacting. Now contrast that with a surgeon in an operating room. The surgeon is absolutely not checking their email. They aren't answering random questions yelled from the hallway. They are doing one singular, incredibly important thing, and absolutely everything else waits. The surgeon is highly respected. The waiter is just busy. So be honest with yourself. Ask yourself, which role are you currently playing at your desk?
If you're acting like the waiter, always responding to messages or texts the literal second they come in, you are slicing your attention into tiny, useless little pieces. To act like the surgeon, you need to take these actionable steps. First, when you sit down to work, close every single tab that lets people reach you. Close the email, close the messaging apps. Next, put your phone in a completely different room. Seriously, not just face down on your desk, physically remove it from your environment. Finally, set strict boundaries. Like, tell yourself you'll only check email at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Making the world wait for you, even just for 2 hours, trains your brain that your current work is sacred. And when your brain genuinely believes the work matters, it stops scanning for interruptions and settles right into a deep rhythm.
Now we arrive at number 3, stop running from discomfort. This addresses the exact precise moment people usually fail and reach for their phones.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we have to completely reframe our relationship with negative emotions. Most of us quit focusing the absolute second the work gets hard. The moment we feel a tiny bit of boredom, frustration, or confusion, boom, we reach for a distraction, simply because that feeling is uncomfortable. But here's the catch. If you run from the hard part, you never ever reach the flow state. You have to understand that boredom isn't a stopping point. Boredom is the gateway. True flow exists entirely on the other side of that discomfort.
Let's walk through this timeline together, because honestly, this is where the magic happens. Step 1. The work gets hard or sticky. Maybe you don't know what to type next, or you get totally confused trying to build a spreadsheet. Step 2. Instead of popping open YouTube or suddenly deciding to go clean the kitchen, you stay in the chair. You refuse to task switch. You literally just sit there and feel that boredom hit your chest. You tell yourself, okay, this feels boring, and I'm just going to feel it. Step 3. You wait. It usually takes about 5 minutes. See, the brain resists this transition into focus kind of like a rocket fighting gravity. It takes immense thrust to push through the atmosphere, but if you don't eject, if you just sit still with the discomfort, step 4 kicks in. The boredom lifts, you break through the atmosphere, and you effortlessly enter the flow state where it is smooth sailing. Bottom line, stop exiting the room just because it gets hot.
We are now at number 4, stop obsessing over the finish line. This is the final and perhaps the most profoundly powerful behavior to change.
It's all about detaching entirely from the outcome. You have to stop trying to finish the task. Stop looking at the clock and frantically calculating how much longer this is going to take. When you rush to the finish line, when your mind is already out at lunch or dreaming about the weekend, you're sending a massive blaring signal to your brain. You're literally telling it that the present moment is bad and the future moment is good. So naturally, your brain fights like crazy to get out of the current moment. Calculating deadlines creates immense anxiety, and anxiety instantly kills focus. Look at true masters of their craft, like a master carpenter or a brilliant coder. They are not rushing to finish. They are completely, beautifully lost in the process. They're looking at the wood. They're looking at the code. They're completely here.
I want you to really absorb this idea. You do not owe the future your anxiety. You owe the present your attention. That is a total game changer. If you sit down to write, don't stress about the deadline. Don't panic because, oh no, you have to write 1,000 words by Friday. Just tell yourself, I am going to write one good sentence. That's all. No deadline, no pressure, just this one sentence right now. When you act like the work itself is interesting, rather than just some awful hurdle you have to jump over, your brain actually gets interested. Focus isn't something you can force. It's something you allow simply by being intensely present.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the grand overarching theme of our explainer today. Remove your brain's malware. Because the real secret here, the thing nobody tells you about productivity, is that you do not need to learn a new skill. You don't need to learn speed reading or some insanely complex time-blocking matrix. What you already have is incredible hardware. Your brain is a literal, natural supercomputer. It's a version of you that naturally locks in and just destroys tasks. But right now, you're loading it up with malware. And that malware is made up of those 4 habits we just talked about: negotiating with distractions, being reactively available to everyone, running away from the feeling of boredom, and constantly obsessing over the finish line. If you simply delete this malware, your brain's natural speed and focus will show up completely automatically.
So here is my direct challenge to you. Look at those 4 behaviors on the screen, pick the one that scares you the most, the one that makes you think, oof, I don't know if I can actually do that. Because guess what? That is exactly where your growth is hiding. Stop doing it today. If you do this, if you catch yourself doing the old behavior and instantly pivot to the new one, I promise you, in 1 month, you will be producing 40 hours of work in just 4 hours. You aren't going to become a completely different person. You'll just be the exact same person with radically different malware-free behaviors.
Most people will consume an explainer like this, nod their heads, feel all inspired, and then go right back to checking their email. Don't be like most people. Be the exception. Be the one who actually executes. This explainer is ending right now. Do not click to the next thing. Do not scroll down to the comments. Close this tab, put your phone in another room, and do 20 minutes of deep, unstructured, unbothered work right now. Prove to yourself that you can do it, because once you prove it once, you can do it forever. So start right now, because if you can finally reclaim your attention from the devices that were literally designed to steal it, ask yourself, What is your supercomputer of a brain actually capable of building next?